all began. I've always loved animals. I've always had a thing for birds. When everyone else looked at pigeons, I mean, I grew up in Manhattan. Everybody else looked at pigeons and thought they were disgusting. I would watch pigeons fly around and think it was the most beautiful thing in the world. Yeah, they poop, but my dog poops. My cats poop and pee, and quite honestly, the occasional accidentally getting pooped on by a pigeon, to me, is no more disgusting than cleaning a cat litter box or picking up dog poop or having your puppy get so excited when you're holding it that it pees on you. So it happens. A couple years ago, I found 2 baby pigeons. Mother and father didn't show up. I watched them for a while. They were about this big, did not have any feathers. I'm the idiot that can't let babies die. So I brought them back to my office, went online, discovered they were pigeons. There was no such thing as a pigeon rescue group at the time. But I found enough websites of people who breed pigeons to figure out how to hand raise them. So I brought them home and I raised them. The whole plan was I was going to keep them, got a big cage. I could not keep, the whole guilt thing came in whenever I'd watch the pigeons fly. So I re-released them when they were about 3 months old. They continue to this day to come to me. So that's really what started all of it. But while I was raising them, I started researching pigeons. And it's very interesting because the pigeon is actually a domesticated animal. There's actually debate as to whether it's the oldest or the second oldest truly domesticated animal, beaten only by the dog. Basically what happened is that people, somewhere in 8,000 to 10,000 years ago, people started breeding what used to be called rock doves. The scientific community now calls them rock pigeons, which kind of annoys me. Started breeding them for food because rock doves or rock pigeons in the wild, there are so many natural predators, they breed constantly. A pair of mated rock doves can reproduce up to 10 times a year. And it's always a clutch of 2 eggs. So a pair in a year produces 20 babies, and those 20 babies in a year produce 20 babies each. So it's one of the easiest food sources just because they just reproduce so much. You don't have to do anything. You have to give them a happy place for them to build a nest and they reproduce. Once they build a nest, they always fly home. So what happened is we accidentally discovered that pigeons had the natural homing instinct. What would happen is I'd breed some pigeons, you'd come to my village and you'd buy them to then breed them in your village, and you'd bring them back and they'd get out and they'd come back to my village, and a month later you'd come back and I'd sell you the same pigeons. And as I always jokingly say, so capitalism was born. Because they're like, oh yeah, I've got 5 pigeons that look strangely just like the 5 I sold you last month. So because of that, we really stopped, for the most part, using them as a food source. I'm convinced to this day that there's some ongoing battle that we don't know about between pigeons and chickens. Because once we stopped using pigeons for food, we started breeding chickens for food. And I don't think the chickens have ever forgiven the pigeons. So we started using them for racing, for messengers, homing pigeons. Pigeons have been used in every major war because they're an unhackable way to get information. You give me 5 or 6 pigeons, I go behind enemy lines, I find out where everything is, write the note on 5 or 6 pigeons, release them. One of them is going to get back to headquarters. Reuters news service started out by using pigeons. Specifically, I believe it was to cross the English Channel, because their clients would then be able to get financial information faster than everybody else. The telegraph line ended at the channel and then began again at the channel. And normally they'd write the information down, stick it in the next ferry, it would go across. 4 hours later, they'd telegraph it back. Reuters and Rothschild, the banking family, would actually have pigeon coops on both sides. They'd get the financial information, write it down, stick it in the pigeon, release the pigeon, hi Dean, release the pigeon would make it over in the channel in less than a half hour, they'd send it over, so their clients got financial information 4 hours before everybody else. So their clients made lots of money, and so Reuters made lots of money, and Rothschild made lots of money. If you read the first chapter in Darwin's Origin of Species, Charles Darwin spent 23 days on the Galapagos Island trying to prove his theory of evolution. He spent a year and a half on the HMS Beagle trying to prove his theory of evolution. He spent 20 years breeding pigeons, coming up with the theory. Darwin surmised that if human beings could take an animal like the rock dove, which was phenomenally successful and phenomenally adaptable, and turn it into breeds of fancy pigeons that could not even feed themselves. There are breeds of pigeons that cannot fly, cannot feed their young, cannot feed themselves. Breeds where we've decided it was aesthetically pleasing for their heads to be permanently stuck in this position, theoretically meaning that they drown if it rains. And Darwin figured if we could take an incredibly successful animal and turn it into something that can't survive on its own, it would make sense that nature would do it the other way around. So the thing that I always love to point out to people, if you read the first chapter, pigeons. What? I'm a mostly vegan. The exceptions are, well, I don't eat meat, I don't drink any milk, and some of that is dietary, a lot of that is cruelty. I started out, my rule was I did not eat anything that was cute or intelligent, and those two lists kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where I don't eat anything, I don't eat any animal that has to die. You know, even organic, grain-fed, you know, all these happy terms that they use. At the end of the day, even if the cow is a happy cow in California, allowed to be in a pasture and munch grass all day, at some point, someone has to kill the cow. Where is everybody? Come on. Hi, Sparky. You're missing your day. You're on camera right now. Oh, and to everyone who thinks that pigeons are dirty, disgusting rats with wings, according to the Centers for Disease Control, there are almost no diseases you can actually get from a pigeon. It's a myth. There are diseases you can get from pigeon coops if you don't clean them, from areas where pigeons flock if it's not cleaned, and most of those diseases actually come from bacteria and from mold spores that grow on it, which is why if you're cleaning it, you should wear a mask. Those same bacteria and mold spores grow in your cat's litter box if you don't clean it every day. As far as actual diseases, this little girl here is a bird. What she carries are all avian diseases. Mammals and avians don't share most diseases. Her body temperature is about 107 degrees. So it's almost 10 degrees above ours. So anything that would survive in me would burn up in her, which is why I'm not worried about getting her sick. And anything that would survive in her, for the most part, would freeze in me. There are certain exceptions, salmonella being one of them, but honestly, salmonella makes them just as sick as us, so you kind of can tell. The whole thing, and I'm hearing people out there going, what about avian flu? Avian flu is not an avian flu. Avian flu is, I'm getting back to my veganism, avian flu is a direct result of the way we produce chicken. Because you have 10,000 chicken shoved into an area approximately the size of your average house, one floor. It reduces their immune system and reduces their body temperature. So what happened with the avian flu is in China, a chicken worker with the flu showed up, sneezed on the chickens. The chickens with depressed immune systems and lower body temperature caught the flu. Because they're chickens, it mutated slightly. And then it jumped back on the humans because they had, again, a depressed immune system and a lower body temperature. That's the only reason. As far as these guys, they can't carry avian flu. Oh, God, an animal that really interests me that I'd like to meet one day, it would probably be an octopus, but a relatively small octopus. Nothing that could actually drag me under the water. Because I understand that while I am, in fact, mostly vegan, there's no guarantee. And while I'd like to meet one, I don't want to be lunch.
Any last words?
This is a puppy with wings. I'm rubbing your belly, and there's nothing you can do about it. I'm rubbing your belly. Is that a camera? I'm rubbing your belly. I'm gonna piss you off now. Playing with your feet. Playing with your feet. Playing with your feet. Up.